the web of life.
Let me try from the first to indicate the point that we're aiming at. The point is this, that human consciousness is at the same time as being a form of awareness and sensitivity and understanding, it's also a form of ignorance.
Celebrating and reflecting on the past year of how far I have come.
Yeah.
Being in the moment of appreciating and celebrating and honoring all the ups and the downs and the dark and the light. Because I wouldn't be here in this moment without all of that. I mean, it's like from my mom passing away in January to, you know, us moving here a few months before that, to, you know, new friendships, some friendships that didn't quite make it through the year, and so all of that, celebrating that that's all meant to be. And the more we align ourselves with what is authentic, for me, I'll say for myself, if I stay in alignment with what is most authentic for myself, that's when you align with what you're meant to be doing. Figuring out who you are, who you want to be. This is everything I've been working on the last year. And the more you align yourself, the more you are on the right path. And if we're being tested by the universe, by these distractions, by things that aren't serving you, and that's okay. Those are also learnable moments. It's going to happen. That's how you learn more about who you are and what you want. So that's, I would say, some of my goals this year were to have more financial freedom and things like that. But I know that's coming, so I'm not going to be too hard on myself. And you know, in the G-Wagon, of course. But that's coming too, eventually. So, but those are external things.
A cool game to play. Well, first, I actually just want to respond. That there was some information in there that I didn't even know about because we had met so recently. And it sounds like it really was a transformative year. And some of that was new to me, like I said. So that's so clear in where I met you and how I met you, that you were ready, right? Like so much happened simultaneously for you. And I think it's worth pointing out that some of the hardships involved over the last year have brought you such immediate newness that you can use to build and create meaning for yourself, and then also create meaning for others. And so I think that's amazing, truly. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And it's clear, right? Like, you keep going inward, right? You keep going inward. And I think that's the way. It's the shortest route. Because that's one direction instead of looking in the outer world, which is just a sphere around us. I think it's the shortest path, right? There's a lot of distractions out there. And the more we talk, the more I know Ashley, and it's not because you're telling me more things.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It's a feeling.
Yeah. Regardless, for a new year, it does sound like the theme here is just alignment and blossoming, for sure. We keep talking about how we have to use that I amness, the I amness, because once we realize that we are what we once desired, that's when there is no more desire, right? And that's why the practice of resolutions puts us on this cycle that will never end. But I do think once we come to a place of I am, we can kind of break that cycle. You mentioned your values can fade, or you don't become attached to them.
That's right.
The same will go with the things that we resolve.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost not a resolution, but it's like a dissolution. So we're dissolving into this greater conception of self. I do think there's much more than the glitters that are immediately obvious. And they're much more alluring and much more you than a G-Wagon is.
Absolutely.
And I know you know that.
Yeah, I do know that. It's kind of like my joke with you, my joke
Yeah.
with people. Yeah.
But we will have them because
Yeah,
it'll be
of course.
fun.
We're gonna race.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
I'm gonna beat your ass.
Because you have no fear. And I'm a mom and I'll use my turn signal.
But yeah, I liked your sentiment. I don't have anything to add. What was your mom's name?
Denise.
Denise.
Yeah.
Denise.
I do believe she's in a better place though.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. I'm happy for her.
What's a word or a phrase or sentiment that you would use to describe Denise?
She really was such a kind, loving person. Soul for sure. Creative. Though she didn't tap into enough of her wisdoms that she definitely had, and so I think, and so she just wasn't. I don't think she knew how to, and that's okay. And so, perhaps I look back on that now and reflect that she needed more outlets or connection to herself, but she didn't. She wasn't so connected to herself, and I think did not have the self-worth that she should have had. And growing up as a kid, it's not really. I don't think I was aware of that either until now as an adult, not looking back, but looking back on that. But yeah, she was such a kind soul.
Do you ever flirt with the idea that she might have been a wise master, and that was her way of teaching it to you?
I hadn't thought about that until we talked about just sharing that now. Yeah. And I believe that parents choose, in some ways, or we choose our parents in some form when we come into this world. We choose. Maybe I was meant to be her daughter in so many ways. I guess what her sisters would say when I was born, the love she had for me was just intense and insane. So, and I know she loved all of it, like my sister and my brother when they listen to this. But your firstborn is just different. Well, you're the baby, aren't you? Are you the
middle?
You're the middle. Oh, okay. So.
And what are you?
Oh, I was number one. I'm number one.
Of three.
Of three. So you're middle. Okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You're middle. You don't strike me as a typical middle child. Not the thing my sister's a middle. We don't have to go into that. Well, maybe you are.
What's a typical middle child?
I think that the middle child sometimes is a little bit trying to fight for the attention of the parents in some ways, because the firstborn is the firstborn and then you have the baby, and so you are in the middle. And so I think my sister would agree that she felt like she had to live up to who I was. Whether or not she said she just wanted to, she tried to strive to be like me, mainly because I think my mom would say, you should be more like Ashley, and that's not cool. Never do that with your kids if you ever have children, because why would she be like me? She's her. You should always be who you are. When my kids play that card, I'm like, but I've never compared you. You are you and you are you. And just because Shay's doing this and you're not doing that, you know what, you're also 14, and when you're 16, you will probably have those privileges. So But yeah, I think in some ways she was trying to live up to who I was, and then lost herself along the way. And we've talked about it. My sister and I have talked about that a little bit. But I wonder if it's different for you because you're the oldest as a girl.
My sister and I, we were just buds because when we were really young, I would say like when we are at the ages of wanting to maybe compete for attention and for worthiness with our parents, I think my collision wasn't parent facing. It was between each other, right? I would say she picked on me. She picked on me and she feels so guilty about it. She feels so guilty about it.
I know, but that's what siblings are kind of supposed to do.
Yeah, totally.
They
Totally.
are.
She feels so guilty about it and she shouldn't.
No.
At all. And this is stuff like obviously we've talked about this and we're way beyond this now. So I hope any corner where she might feel that is completely gone by this point. I do think it is. But I would say we grew up quickly. And through the adversity of our parents' relationship, we became buds. And we said, okay, we're going to team up in doing this thing together. And that's where I don't have as many like hard beliefs on order of birth when it comes to who you are. But one thing that I do think does resonate with me is something you said before all this, which is we might choose our parents, we might choose our families, we might choose our siblings. What's your understanding of that journey the souls take?
I actually, I'm on your, I agree with what you're saying. In some ways I believe this is not my first time around the sun. Like I feel like I feel like an old soul in this world. So I do feel like there's been lives where I've lived, and I think that I attract those kind of people in my life as well. But yeah, I don't necessarily have these visions of who I was, but I do believe I did with my life coach friend Lauren. We have said things before to one another where we feel like we were healers at one time, witches, and I definitely believe in witchery and witchy stuff. And again, that goes back to magic in my mind. So I do believe that there's, at one point I was probably some sort of witch or healer. And I believe in this world now, I'm here to heal and to be a healer. And to also heal myself. So yeah, I don't know that I've had exact visions. But I'm not opposed to it. And I do believe in some way I chose my mom. And that was, and yeah, I really love the idea of her being that master, of wisdoms that's taught me about who I am. And yeah, I think in some ways she gave up her life for the three of us. But yeah, I mean, the intensity of having that firstborn is, and I think I've talked about that before with Shay. Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's pretty magical itself. And I had a similar journey where it's volatile in our house as well. And so we became closer, the three of us, the older we got. So when I would say in the high school ages when my parents were getting divorced, my brother and my sister teamed up kind of against me. Because I was diving into, for better or for worse, really studying a lot, doing really well in school, lots of sports. Like I kept myself distracted from what was actually going on in the family. And so my sister and my brother were kind of like, my sister would call me a goody two shoes and things like that. So we weren't always on the same page, but eventually I feel like we all grew up in our own ways, emotionally and mentally, and then we became a lot closer and became like, okay, mom and dad are going through this and it's not good, so we do need to actually unite as the three of us together. So we did become close later in life, so I'm thankful for that. But of course we picked on each other. I mean, that's kind of par for the course. Though I would, if that happens with my boys now, I do, again, like it is by, your words need to be meaningful and intentional. And when they say things, but they, for the most part, get on really well. And if there's an issue, they're pretty good about talking it out, or I can help them talk it out. They've never ever. I'm not on board with the, oh, they're boys, they're gonna fight, they're gonna hit each other. Never once have they hit each other. I think that's bullshit. I get it, like you have, boys, have this, I guess they just, this physicalness about them. I think girls can too, but they've never once laid a hand on one another. I mean, maybe Shay bit Sebastian when he was like 2, because he was like, I don't want this baby in my house. Why did you bring him home? That kind of thing. But no, they have a very loving civil relationship. Some of course rivalry, or they know each other. But that's close. We're in close quarters. Mm-hmm. We're together a lot, and that's going to happen. But there has to be respect. Mm-hmm. With one another. And if you in the moment are heated and saying these things, it's like, go to your separate corners and take that pause and take that time to go reflect and to really think about what you want to say and how you want to behave. Mm-hmm. So they are both amazingly kind boys. But I get it, there's this level of, you also still need to you are 16 and you're able to drive, and it's part of the being as a team, as a family. And sometimes it's like, well, will you pay me for it? Shay was like, will you pay me for that job? And part of me is like, I get that. And then sometimes you just have to do it because it's a team. And we have to work together. So I think for the most part, we have set that the essence in the house to be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only met them once. But it seems like they're close, mm-hmm. Close with each other. And I do see certain characteristics in each of them that might be unique to each of them. Shay's the older one. He seems like an incredibly sweet boy. Yeah. He seems like he's super nice, really gentle. And then what's the name of your?
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
He's my 14.
Sebastian seems like he's onto something in his own head. Mm-hmm. And he seems really smart. Not that that's unique to him, but he seems like he knows something and he hasn't figured it out yet. I can almost see that in him. And he can see the world for... he almost sees through something and he hasn't quite figured it out yet. That's in his eyes. He looks around a room of adults and he's questioning things. Do you recognize that at all?
100%. Yes, he does. And he has this level of resilience and confidence that is genuine. And from the beginning, in so many ways, he like my friends that will listen to this. The boy's favorite color has been pink for all I could,
Both of them?
No, Sebastian. Yeah, Shay was his colors. If we I let them, as a Montessori myself, I just let them choose what they wanted to wear for the most part and what they wanted to do, and help them in those directions. So Shay gravitated towards blues and greens. Sebastian was fuchsia, pink, purple, and he would say rainbow was one of his favorite colors, and his favorite animal were unicorns. That was my Sebastian, and so I never batted an eye to it. It's well, of course, why you should always be able to choose, especially when you feel that confident about his decisions of no, this is what I love. When Shay was more ambivalent, not quite sure, maybe that comes from my being the first time parent myself and not knowing what I was doing exactly. But no, Sebi has always been this very, I know who I am and who I want to be, or figuring that out. And he's always had my support more than anything. And one of the first things he'd probably kill me. One of the first things he picked out by himself was a fuchsia colored tutu that was sequenced and frilly as fuck. And it was, he wore it until the seam split. Mm. He would wear it to wherever. It was one of those things where Shay was wearing costumes out wherever we went. Just go to the grocery store. Kids don't do that enough. Why are we let them. He's like, Sebastian's like, I want to wear this tutu to the grocery store. I'm like, you can wear it. That's what I would, if I want to wear that, I would wear that too. But I just really admire them for being, they're completely individualistic people. I do, their common denominator is gaming, so I do love that they are able to game together, because I didn't know if Sebastian, he's very theatrical and he's in theatrics, but then yet he's
in theatrics. He's like in theater.
He's in theater. Okay. Yeah, he's going to be in Sweeney Todd in February.
Is he Sweeney?
He's not Sweeney. As a freshman, you generally don't get those.
Right.
He's got to work up to it. But last year he did Percy Jackson. Do you know what Percy Jackson?
Books. Yeah.
And he was the goat dude. So that was one of the main parts he had in 8th grade.
He's the goat.
He loved it. He was Goat Man. I don't remember his name at the moment. But then yet I do love that it's nice to have something in common, of course, when you're friends, when you're siblings. So they have the gaming thing. And they can both just sit there and talk about it. And I was thankful that he decided to start gaming, Sebi, because he didn't for years. And Shay's very technical, like put the computer together himself kind of thing. And so I just thought they're so different, and I love that about them, but I also want them to, and they played baseball together, they played rugby together, so that does come. But they do need to choose it themselves.
Yeah.
So important.
It makes me smile that you are so embracing of whatever they decide for themselves. And when you were analyzing both of them and how open Sebastian is to these things that might seem controversial to others, the first thing you did was look back at yourself and say, maybe that's because I wasn't so open with Shay. Or I didn't, that I might have, as a first mother, put on some guards.
Yes.
And I think that's so cool of you to immediately attach that with potential difference in the way you approach parenting. That's very strong, and I think that's such a cool way to look inward. I'm definitely not anywhere close to the place where I need kids right now, but I would say that's one of the most exciting components about it. You get to watch this evolution of these tiny things that kids are thinking about and looking about, and then how that turns into something much grander later on. And you're setting them up for success because you're allowing them to really find the things that speak to them instead of going on this entire journey just to come back to it, right? Life is so much easier if you can just embrace where you were to begin with. A lot of the work people do is like, there's the trauma side, but there's also just like this regression of, where do I like to play? What makes me happy? And if you go through life suppressing that and hiding it, it's going to be really hard to find it when you start asking yourself the big questions of life. You'll find yourself really disconnected. And so you're really doing them service by allowing them to wear the tutu, right?
And when you grow up with that, I think in some ways Shay didn't think anything differently of it either. If somebody said anything about, oh, your brother's wearing rainbow socks, Shay was like, and?
Cool.
It was accepted in our house to be an individual. And I do think that Shay's also come into his own, and even though I was a nervous mom first time around, which is normal, he's really come into his own as well and feels very comfortable in the world. And both of them, when they talk about, both of them actually will talk about soul searching and purpose and meaning, and they have both come to me separately to talk to me about that. And Sebastian once asked me about core values, and it was a school project, and he hadn't done it. So he literally called me from school this past year, and he was like, Mom, I'm like, what? He's whispering on the phone. I'm like, what are you doing? You're at school. He's like, your core values, what are they? And so and I was like, whatever it was, like I couldn't hear him or something, and then he got disconnected, and he sent me a text message. He's like, these are the 4 I guessed. And 3 out of the 4 were exactly the ones that I was texting him. It was just like, I just got goosebumps when I said that. I love that he knows me as well. And that they're both open to the soul searching. And I would say, like, as much as we can, is being a role model. And we're still, again, like, we still talk about, like, we still make my own mistakes. We talked about that last time, about fucking up. But owning it, taking responsibility and changing that behavior. But yeah, no, they being a role model for them and them picking out the Daily Stoic book. I mean, that's so meaningful for me. And like the angelic numbers that come up, and whether they think it's woo or not, I'm still going to be that. That's who I am. So I would love that I'm embracing it, but not only that they're embracing it as well at their own level. So being that role model, and all of us are being role models, or maybe there's even a better word for role model, but I guess the more you're comfortable in who you are and whatever those things are, that's a goal. That's definitely a goal for myself this year is to continue on that path.
Yeah. And when you're comfortable with who you are, you're not comparing yourself to others.
That's right.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, it's that simple.
And if you catch it, sorry.
Go ahead.
If you catch yourself in that comparison in a second, you just know that, wait, but that's not me.
That's something within you, right? Like if you do catch yourself judging somebody at all, if you're judging anybody, it's because you judge yourself.
That's right.
And you're not letting something through. So they're going to grow up to be such great kids. Seriously. And this, again, I spent 20 minutes, 30 minutes around them.
Right.
But I could see all of those things that you were bringing up. So, new year coming up, acting more intentional. Where do you think you're going to be this time next year?
Well, we're going to be in a recording studio doing this. Wherever we are in the world. Hopefully writing after I've written my book, signing autographs.
There you go. Don't laugh, it's not fucking funny.
No, it's not fucking funny, it's fucking real.
Yeah.
Now that I put that intention out to the universe and in the podcast, I'm with you. I think when you set those intentions, and it's a realistic goal, like whether or not the book is finished by this time next year, but at least starting the idea of the book, continuing on the podcast, continuing on this journey of coming up with our own badass label of my Uber driver who picked me up from Miami. When I landed here from Miami, I don't know, I had like a bag with me, and he's like, is that your label? And it's not, it wasn't. I was like, no, but I'm designing a label, and it's going to be awesome and badass. In my mind, I'm like, I've already done it. And I want to do it with us, like our alternative space. I want to do it with the Shift Girls, and making those whatever they are intentional and cool and inspirational sayings. So I think when like little things like that do happen, they do plant the seed. Mm-hmm. So lots of seeds being planted. Yeah. I'd like to ask you the same question.
Which one?
Where do you see yourself next year?
I'm really not concerned with it.
Yeah.
I'm really not at all concerned with it at this point. I guess so that I can give you some subject matter, some level of a response. I mean, I share the sentiment of, man, how much have things changed?
Yeah.
There's nowhere else I want to be. I know there's a lot to come, but I'm not excited about then. Like, I really am excited about right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because I'm not at all concerned about what's out there. Something is inside.
Yeah.
And this is really just the expression of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always feel like I'm at home. Like I always feel like I'm there. And I'm just giving it the opportunity to come out. I don't think I have a good answer to this.
I think that is your answer. That's exactly.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I'm with you in that. I'm not concerned. I just know that there's going to be so much. I'm so celebrating this moment and appreciating it. And like as you said, there's nowhere else I want to be right now. But I'm so excited about like because of this, the growth that's coming. Yeah. Yeah, and the expansion and
a response that can apply to the resolution conversation is something that I've just been working on, and it has honestly nothing to do with a year. But I've been trying to remove myself from any thoughts that aren't serving me. This is, an obvious conversation, but also looking back at any stones that I've left unturned. And there was an interesting thing that happened to me last week, maybe within the last couple of days. And for the past maybe 2 months in doing this practice of thinking about stones that I've left unturned, one name kept coming up, which is this kid I went to middle school and high school with. Because I was thinking about, do I have any adversaries in life? Do I have any adversaries? And that name and face kept popping up. I really don't think that there was any one thing that I ever really did to the guy, or one thing that he necessarily ever did to me, but I still felt it. And he texted me like a few nights ago.
Oh, wow.
And he had no reason to. I was conflicted for a long time on maybe I can just let go of it, because there really isn't anything that I necessarily wanted to repent for. That being said, he did that. And I was like, how can I find a way to love this kid? And he has he's done some pretty like crude and harsh things, not necessarily to me, but just in his life. But I know him because I knew him in like middle school, right? So I know what his family's like. So I was like, how can I find a way to love this guy? How can I find a way to love this guy? And I remember his dad was this like big, strong dude, like really big, strong dude. And he was not an empath whatsoever, right? And so I imagined myself as this guy, my friend. I'll call him friend. As my friend. I imagined myself as him, as a kid, being bullied by my dad. And after I did that, I started to love him. Like I started to see why these things came after that. And so in order for me to have peace in what he went through and where he is now, I also started to imagine from where he is now what a life could look like for him, where he is in touch with the things that he loves and who he is. And the second I did that, I felt that karma, right? I felt like I really did create the seeds and the opportunity for him to go on and live the life that would give him the peace from that suffering. And there's something about the practice of that kind of imagination that just gave me such a release. And I can't describe it, but to bring this back to the resolution, right? The New Year thing, this theme that everyone brings up is like, I want to figure out if there are any other nooks and crannies that I need to do that practice in, because I do think that might be a really powerful maneuver in freeing myself.
There's so much there. I love that, by the way. That's what an amazing lesson for yourself and to share with others. And I agree about just offering, even if you don't know, and you have that moment of that person and that maybe that feeling of when that person's name comes up, and I'm not saying this is how you felt, but if I have a name that comes up, I have a moment where I'm like, that name doesn't make me feel good when I see it. And I guess in some ways you think, okay, I'm just going to stop following them, or I'm going to remove them from my whatever. So I'm not having the reminders. But I love the extension that you put onto it. It's like, okay, what's there? And in order to let go and truly release it, where it doesn't keep coming back to you in a way that's not healthy or negative. It's almost like a reconciliation with that feeling of that from that person. And to have compassion for him for the experiences and the life that he was living. I guess in a sense you put yourself in his position, which is, I think, that very, very powerful visual. And so I was going to add to that, he only knew what he knew at the time. Doesn't excuse necessarily the horrible things he did or whatever the things he did do. You're not, it doesn't sound like you're being, from my perspective, you're not being judgmental, but there's still something there, and that's important to just say, there's no judgment. though, but you offered him a gift, and I'm not even sure if he's aware of it, but karma is so powerful that you offered them this gift of love, because if he's still on this earth, he has the birthright to live it the way he wants to, and he doesn't have to live in this world of being like, well, I was mistreated for all these years, I'm going to live as and I'm going to be a victim. It's almost overcoming that and just saying, no, I deserve to live the life I want to live. And I'm not even in the context of your friend. I don't want to speak to that, but I guess when I talk about this with other people, it's saying, well, what are their experiences? They are behaving this way because it's what they know, it's what they saw, it's what they experienced. So give them that, hold that space for them, for people that go through that stuff. And all you can hope for is that they decide to change that and to change their trajectory for life, because they have that birthright to do that for themselves. So no, I think that's really powerful that you did that for him. I find that as a gift. And it's so learnable, this moment. For me as well, thinking, yeah, there's probably some little nooks and crannies I could dig into for myself that I will need to work through, that I'm still working through.
If you really mean what you say when you say I'm one with the universe, then what you're saying there is that you are equally yourself, but you are equally this guy that you grew up with, who you have these feelings for. And when you look at that, you don't want to contend with that anymore. You want to understand how you could possibly have come to a point where you behave that way. If we are using the power of I amness, then we have to realize that we are equally each other, right? God, all, whatever you want to call it. If you are going to recognize the power of that, then nothing is separate from that. I'm sitting across the room from that. And so it's a waking realization that everything in front of you is incredibly powerful. And that's why I don't really give a shit what happens next year, to be honest.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Because it does that. Well, that's the thing. It's. I mean, my resolutions are all internal. The internalness of being, and so my friend Evelyn, I call her E, she asked me. She's like, "What's your 2 favorite, things?" And she asked me, yesterday or the day before, universe, number 1, being connected to that universe and the higher self, and then the second is me. And within that, I believe within that umbrella is all that, because some people would say, oh, what about your family? I was like, well, that's in the umbrella of the universe, from my perspective. But without hesitation, it was universe and then myself. Like, those are my 2 favorite things. So it's working on that, the soul.
Yeah.
And I said to a friend this morning, it was more of a funny thing that came up, and I can't remember the exact thing of what it was, but I said, well, I really truly want to bring out the best in people. And he agreed with me. He's like, no, you do. And I was like, well, no, I don't mean it like that. He's like, no, but you really do. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. So that's in the sense of, but that for me is more like how guiding people and helping them to realize just to be connected to your soul.
Yeah.
Can you connect to yourself?
When you start to love yourself and make that your primary objective, there's nothing else that'll come out of you other than love for other people. There's nothing else that'll come out of you, because there's nothing within you that is malice.
Right.
And that's the paradox, right? That's the transcendent thing that we have to overcome. It's so easy, but because we listen to what other people say about what a good person is, it's so hard to find.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to find that, because it took me a level of disillusionment to come to that conclusion, right? To begin trusting myself more than my outside surroundings, That's, by the way, when we were talking about the Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Tower of Babel, that was what I took away from it. Once we get to the point where we're disillusioned with what everybody else is saying around us, then we say, okay, I can go inside because that's what I can trust most in order to come to truth. Examples of specifically how that came to be, I mean, government, education, pharma, COVID, WebMD, the list goes on. I can't necessarily trust anything that I once held as an authority in my life. So instead of making this sound like it's easy, I would encourage someone who might be listening to say, okay, do I really trust what's going on here more than I trust myself to really make sense of things? And your yes and no, engaging that, is going to be your intuition and your gut. And that's going to look like different things for everybody. I've mentioned in the past for me that I have a full somatic experience. I call it turning on the light. For you, that's going to be different. It's going to be different. It might be similar. But explore that and ask yourself questions and give yourself trust, because it's not going to be me and it's not going to be Ashley who is going to give you the guidance. We're just going to talk about our separate higher selves and our separate universes. And those are going to give you clues, and the things that resonate with you are things that exist within you. So continue to explore those.
I agree with you. I think because of where we're at, we make it sound like it was not an easy journey, and and I think about all the time where I am now and it took years, and it took years of the belief in myself, and trusting that inner trust muscle, that your intuition is talking to you all the time, and trusting that. And I love the word disillusion within that, of like, I guess, separating ourselves from all the things that we've been told to believe in. And if it didn't feel right, then there's information there for you to dig in and to, not to have like complete anarchy, but to at least, well, maybe internally anarchy. But that's the journey of creating who you want to be and not who you're told to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that trusting that intuition, and even I think when friends come to me, or maybe even to you, I think, and if I go to a friend, they'll remind me, what does your intuition say? Because sometimes we can forget that ourselves. Not so much more so now, because I am working and practicing on that trust muscle. But yeah, they will remind me, which we all need reminding, I think, from time to time. I know I do. And they'll just say, well, you're the one, what would you say to me? And I'm like, well, trust your intuition. Or look into that intuition. What's your intuition saying to you? And explore that, lean into it.
Do you believe in fate or free will?
Well, I don't, free will, but I guess I have to define free will. That's kind of a birthright in some ways, of making choices and creating what you want. I don't believe in fate. I believe in when you align yourself with the things that you want, that it's not coincident. There's no coincidence. It's meant to be the way it's meant to be, and unfold and unravel the way the universe has written the script already. And we can continue to, if you want, rewrite it, but the universe already has that plan for us. So if I'm doing the things that I want to do, like today, then the universe is like, okay, great, I've opened that door. Another door will open for her, another door will open for her. And if the universe gives me a test to see, really probe me, are you sure you want that, Ashley? Okay, I'm going to give this to you again. You sure you want that? I'm like, damn it, I should have learned that lesson. It took me 3 times or whatever. So faith, I prefer to say I believe in and lean into faith of what's meant to be will be. And when you believe in that, I also feel like that's another unveiling. When you said the word veil, I just sort of pictured this like sheer veil, like being like dragged across my body. I love that. That was just what came for me. But the idea for me is faith of, and then you release the resistance of control. You can only control your, yes, your thoughts in your mind and your own self. But I feel like I just went off on various tangents.
You didn't, because what you did was the most powerful thing a human being can do. I gave you a thought-provoking question, which presented you with a polarity. And, someone can pick the camp of fate or free will and give a rationale for it.
Yeah.
But what you did was you created a third element because it was more true to you, which was faith. And faith in a lot of ways, and I'm not going to sit here and tell people to believe or to, remain sovereign, like truly remain sovereign. Don't take our words for it. Like do your path. But what you did was you created an alternative that was more true than the polarity that was presented to you.
Right.
I think in a lot of ways, what we've noticed throughout society over the last decade has been an increasing amount of polarity. We look at things in very binary ways, right? It's left, right, cis, pan, team iPhone, team Android, Democrats, Republicans. So that polarity presents us with steps, right? It seems like adversity. It presents itself as a wall of contention. But as we grow, walls become stairs. We can recognize that walls are stairs.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're creating opportunities.
Yeah.
For yourself, as you said, I answered it the way that's meaningful for me.
Faith might be an all-encompassing one, right? So it's like you might throw in a third element, but faith can beat any contention, any polarity that you see. I want to think about that more. But a great answer, in my opinion. I don't think I went on a tangent at all. That was badass.
Felt good.
Yeah. Can you read something that you've written in the past? Because last podcast we had, that was what we were going to start off with, and it didn't come to fruition. But
I kind of just read something that I wrote earlier today. But you want something else different?
I'd like to hear something as a quote from Ashley.
Well, actually, I'm sure I could. Okay. So I said the vibe as we come closer to the end of the year, and I love that you use metaphors with nature, and I definitely do as well, not as much as you, but I was inspired to do that and talk about coming into the winter season of what that means, what that looks like, and we have we come into our 4 seasons here. And with this season, there's rebirth and there's death. So the leaves fall off but this is like, we cannot resist nature. This is what's supposed to happen, And so I think the comparison is when people say, "Oh, the winter, this is." Winter is meant to happen. We need winter. Like, this is Mother Nature's way of our own personal, the rebirth that's happening in the world, and then coming into this year, and then 2024 around the corner, that's another for me as a rebirth. And so it's like so I wrote something about shedding the old self, and the world is now shedding, and then coming into their new self. So I just wrote, on a personal level, we shed ourselves to welcome the new self. This transition can also be really hard and painful. Shift the mind to say, this is an opportunity to grow into the new self. Acknowledge how far you have come and celebrate where you are now. Relish in the moment and get excited about what's to come. I definitely have other things that I've written that are probably more powerful, but it's just, there is this level of and I wrote, when the leaves are shedding, there is these they fall into the ground, and it's like, maybe it's mushy and it's muddy and it's gross because it's the rain and the snow. But we need the nutrients all go back into the soil. And so we need to remember to have our own nutrients and nourishment in order to grow and to continue on this infinite cycle of life. And we need the wind, and we need the sunshine, and we need the rain, and this is all essential. So whatever those nutrients are that we need to feed ourselves. But yeah, that's what I was writing in the last couple of days and comparing ourselves to what nature's going through is what we're going through. So I don't even look at winter as this horrible thing that's coming when I'm like, well, wait, this is amazing. Like be in the because we literally just switched over from fall to winter 2 days ago, 21st, or well, more than that, a few days ago. Like we have to embrace what it is. This is what we're supposed to be going through. So I don't even look at it that way anymore, which is so positive. I guess it doesn't affect me, and that's growth within me. Similar to the idea of what you were saying, like if we're all one, we're all supposed to be going through this. It's that acknowledgement, acceptance of what we're going through in life. So yeah, that's. And something that you said, and you just used it twice once in the last podcast and now, but you said you feel so at home within you, and I wrote down something you had said in the last podcast, and helping us all return back home, which I believe that's the internal home. So I wanted to come back to that when you said it earlier, and that resonates with me a lot, and I love that. So yeah, so I was taking notes on the things you were saying in that, and I have that here as well as a reflection of coming back to home, and whatever that looks like for you. It's.
Yeah, we are equally expanding and contracting.
So was that acceptable?
No, I thank you for sharing that, and. Yeah, I mean, there's maybe a funny, stupid, kind of, I don't know, not really dirty joke that I like to use for that is, people talk about which came first, the chicken and the egg. We don't know, but we do know that both came.
Oh, that's funny. Thank you for sharing that. You gotta have a good joke.
You gotta
have a good dirty joke.
But the point is the experience of that, right? So there is the funny joke, which is funny, but then you sit back and you say, it's not about first. A lot of the Rosicrucians and mystics and, magicians like to talk about is how the tree creates fruits, right? You can call it leaves or fruits. And then when it dies, those fall, right? So in the fall, those seeds come back down to the earth and they get planted. That tree eventually dies, and then these new ones come into the life force. So the fundamental question there is what lives forever? What lives on?
Well, I guess that's the infinite, isn't it? It's just continuous.
And that's actually spot on. So when you think about the concept of infinity, space and time can't exist. Because if infinite Ashleys can exist, if you're looking at yourself as like a physical timeline, an alternative can't take up the space and time that you are right now. This can't be replaced. Therefore, space and time don't exist. And that's going to be another dimensional tangent that I'm not going to take. And I know I lose people. And I kind of it's super confusing because I don't know how to talk about certain things yet. But space and time can't exist if infinity exists.
Yeah, no, the dimensional thing is a new realm for me that I'm curious to keep learning more about.
There are a couple people who talk about dimensions and spiritual worlds, but I actually don't think they give anybody any context as to what higher truth is. Oh man, I can go in so many different tangents and directions about that, but one that resonates with everybody is UFOs. The concept of UFOs is becoming it's being drizzled into society, and since our attention is more and more accepting of it, it's going to actually be a reality soon. same way that there's a UFO wave that's coming, which it's going to be real very soon. There's also a spiritual crowd that goes into this integration of the spiritual into the material world. They put their attention there, so it's going to become real for the people who believe in it. Your beliefs are your experience, right? And once we get to the place where we accept these things as real, they will be real. That's the world we live in. Everything that you believe is your experience. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I bring this up is that they're tricky, right? It's a tricky inversion world, right? It's just because something new presents itself does not mean that gives you better context and better answers. It actually brings you further away from the middle path. It brings you further away. Talking to spirits, talking to other entities and beings, these are more distractions. It's the same as going to somebody outwardly and having them tell you how to live your life. So again, your attention is your power. It's your prana, it's your life force. It needs to be directed inwardly. It needs to be directed inwardly and not latched on to these outer things. Because if it's a spirit, if it's an alien, these are things that are going to tell you externally who you are, and you're going to lose the path. The quickest way to the truth is inward. I hope that wasn't the most confusing thing I've ever said.
No, you say some pretty confusing things, so that's not the most confusing.
Yeah.
I mean that with the highest compliment. No, I was just actually trying to remember. There is a quote or something along the lines of the shortest distance to where you want to get to internally is that direction. And
I am. It's being there.
It's being there. Yes, I am. No, dude, this is like, you're supposed to be sharing your knowledge and your wisdoms in the way that resonates with you. And so, and the more you say these things out loud, there's just, it derives more, I don't know, for sure, curiosity for me and for yourself. So, and that's what I like and love about our dynamic is your philosophical, mystical side of you that I'm learning, and we should be learning from one another. And you know, my direction, my perspective as well, which is whatever that is. But it all does come back to one. It does all come back to the same.
I was going to say, to counter that, first of all, you didn't even say anything that you're providing to me, and you're providing a lot. You're providing a lot of, and most of the context you've given me is personally on relationships, and also from a maternal aspect, it gives me a lot of context on things that I don't have information for, which has given me a lot of wisdom. So I don't want to deny you of that, but I don't think either is important, my mystical side or whatever your maternal wisdoms are, because the point is, everything that, like, I feel inclined to expose myself to you, right?
Yes.
And you are me. I see me in you, and you see you in me.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that there is no separation, that's the thing I was getting at with the trees. There is no separation from the tree that's to come than the one that existed. Right?
There you go.
There is no separation from the new tree that came from the one that existed. There is no separation from the chicken and the egg. They're the same thing. They are one. It gets you back to that conclusion, right? It's not, I am a millionaire. I am one who drives G-Wagon. It is, I am that I am. It just takes you back home. And so we did this entire evolution and this entire journey of all to get back to void, to get back to all, to get back to void, right? That is the infinity, that we're in a world that we can't use words to describe. When we talked about, you know, people say this is a mirror world. Well, we also are in like, everything is mental, everything is a thought, and thoughts are actually directed through the use of words. So maybe we're not even a mirror, right? Maybe we're a palindrome, right? There's a word that goes in one direction but equally backwards.
What's the word? Maybe there is a word.
Mai instead of I am.
How do you spell that?
What if we all just went? That'd be really funny.
That would be really
And then just the whole episode goes in reverse and people are walking backwards. And
Very Matrix-like.
yeah.
Very Matrix-like.
There's a movie I love. It's called Mr. Nobody.
I'm not gonna know that one.
Go watch it. Jared Leto.
Oh, I love Jared Leto.
It's about entropy. It's about choice. It's about time.
Is it new?
No, it's maybe 2013 or 14. And I watched it.
Okay.
No one really, I don't know, it spoke to me from that moment. Oh man, it's beautiful. One of the most perfect movies ever made.
Well, I will put that on my phone and watch it.
Yeah,
Mr. Nobody.
yeah.
Because we don't have to be, I know, I'm like looking at the symbolic stars. And there's 6. What is that? Is that
This shape?
is that related to the chakras?
How
many chakras we have?
It is related. So we were talking, so for context, if someone wanted to look up, we're drinking these, this is going to be our first sponsor.
It's going to be our first sponsor, yeah.
So it's an Odyssey mushroom elixir for energy and focus. And the shape of it, I believe it's Metatron's cube. But within Metatron's cube, there are a lot of different symbols coming into form. So if you were to look at just the circles, right?
Yeah.
That is what they call the fruit of life. There's the seed of life. There's the fruit of life. There's the tree of life, right? So these are different alchemical shapes and sacred geometrical shapes that are coming to form. But you can also see the Star of David in here. You can see what's called a Merkaba, which is an energetic life being that is essentially our energetic form that you can meditate on and literally become if you.
What's the word again? Say it again.
Merkaba. There's a lot. So it's an all-encompassing form of many potentially infinite shapes in one that are the kind of matrix of the creation that we're experiencing.
I'm a researcher. I'm a researcher. I love to research. I love to learn and not learn. So, but I would say since meeting you made me more aware of word breakdowns. So now like you can read the words and then I'm like, I'll look up the concept or I'll look up what does that mean? And then I'm like, well, wait, there's so much meaning in the actual word itself. And so I appreciate that about you and our newfound friendship. And so that's what I mean. Like I feel like when you have things like this, they're intentional for the most part. So I'm like, I was curious about the can and the symbols on there, which is, and of course you knew what they were.
Well, we were talking about home, right? Here's a fun one. The brand is called Odyssey. The author of all of these books is Homer.
Homer, that's right.
Right?
Look at that.
So it's funny. Like you can continue on anything. And imagine if you do create a practice out of this, how annoying of a friend you can be to all of your friends. But I think like there's nothing better. And that makes me smile. So when I look at the world, it's almost as if I am missing like certain clues. And I'm like laughing with myself, right? It's like, it's right here. It's right there. You know, it's right there. So it makes me smile.
Be open to them. And that's one of my goals. It's like be more consciously aware of these types of things that are, as you said, like I end up with Homer, with Odyssey. That's right. And like what this star means, the Star of David. And no, I love that. And when you break down the words or the symbols of, so one of the bracelets, I just remember one of the bracelets I bought myself. I don't typically buy myself jewelry, but I went to this shop and I got my sister something for Christmas. And this certain bracelet spoke to me when I first walked in.
What was the shop?
It's called, well, actually, it's the last name of the dude who is the designer. You're going to ask me that. But
It's okay.
It'll come to me.
It says, let me see the bracelet.
Okay, so maybe you'll see what the little guys are there.
Turtles.
They're not turtles. Do you need my glasses? Let's see. Do you want me to tell you what it is or give you a hint?
No, tell me. Actually, no. I'm gonna figure this out.
You are going to figure it
Are
out.
they shields?
Well, somewhat of a shield. It's Egyptian.
It's a snake. Yeah, these are serpents.
They're two little...
Serpents' heads coming to collision, right?
No, but that's actually pretty cool that you think that.
Are they ovaries?
What are ovaries?
You don't know what ovaries are?
I mean...
You have them and I don't.
Oh, you're thinking of an animal. It's called an ovary.
Okay, so
Yes, I know what
no, these are serpents.
No.
What is it? Oh, it's a crab?
Nope.
Explain.
You're so funny.
Everyone's be like, what the fuck is this?
I know.
Thing that's in his hand. What could it possibly...
I like your guessing. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
It's an Egyptian symbolic of... It's a scarab. It's the beetle. So the beetle's representative of the sun, because a beetle, like a dung beetle, makes the circle, and the circle that's symbolic of rebirth. So the scarab. So when the woman is explaining this to me, there's something about the name of the shop that I'm totally blanking on it. Aside from his last name, it's also...
It says underneath the beetle.
Oh yeah, can you see it? What does it say? I can look at my class. You're right. It's in there. I think it's
G-A-S...
Gas.
Dijon.
Gas Dijon. So I think that's his last name, and then gas means for him. It's so it's French. But he's drawn to the scarab. The scarab is like an Egyptian symbolic of rebirth and resurrection.
His the gas, the A is much larger than the G and the S, and it looks like a pyramid.
Or a mountain.
Or a mountain with a peak, because the line of the A cuts through.
Yeah.
But
it could be the pyramid. I think you're right.
Yeah, it's interesting. So why did it speak to you? There's a lot we can do with that.
Yeah. I love the movement of the little thingies here. It spoke to me, and I took a couple laps around. I really wanted to find something nice for my sister. And I don't know, I just something, and I kept coming back to it. I was like, and then she didn't tell me this until after, which I really respect, but this was the only one that he made for and I think this is not like a franchise. The shop is in Miami. So she said the other beetles had like enamel on them and colors, and I just like the simplicity of it. But when she started describing to me what the scarab is, like the whole rebirth, I was like, that's me written all over it.
Yeah.
Right when she said that, and she knew exactly what she just was so passionate about. It's like, you really know your stuff. She's like, I love that most of this jewelry, if not all of it, it has stories. Certain stones, certain material that he uses. He's very mindful and intentional with the jewelry that he makes, and the movement of it, and to make it actually somewhat reasonable for people. But when she said symbolic of rebirth, and then I looked up again, it's like resurrection, the eternal cycle of life, birth, life, death, and resurrection. And then there's regeneration within that. So, and it was just, so when I bought it, she's like, so I wanted to let you know that this is the only one. And I'm like, then it's just, so I love that I was like, you know what? Buy a piece of jewelry for yourself. Yeah. And I did put it under the Christmas tree.
That means you're never allowed to buy yourself something again. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. No, first of all, objectively, aesthetically, love the piece. There's a lot with the scarab that I would love to get into sometime, which is cool. But I also like that it's two that are connected, and they are almost looking like they're contending with each other, but it's part of one piece. Right, so it's like the same as like ascending from duality and polarity, right? And because it is all one thing. Opposites aren't separate. They're two different degrees of one thing.
You need one with the other, which is like, I know I've said that to you before.
Yeah. Like when, at what point, I mean, this is not my wisdom, this is the Kabbalah, and this is the principle of polarity, but what they talk about is the easiest one to make it totally register is temperature. When does hot become cold? It's totally subjective, right? We say the freezing point is 32 degrees, but I mean, think about salt water, the ocean. The freezing point is lower than that, right? So it's completely a subjective thing. I think it's like 27 degrees or something like that. So hot and cold are two different degrees of the same thing, which is maybe temperature, right? They're not different. They're not different. They're at different vibrations. They're literally at different vibrations. Yeah. They say the vibration of all or God is most similar to water. And we talked about God being equally void but equally allness. We are technically experiencing part of the allness, right? Because we are a being. And so the vibration that's taking form has to be at such a rapid rate that it almost looks like stillness, right? And an example of what that visual would be is maybe the rotation of a wheel. The rotation of a wheel when it's going really fast looks like it's still, right? So the vibration of all would be vibrating so fast that it looks like it's stillness. And when we talk about raising our vibration, being in high vibes, that's when we talk about feeling the most like God. I mean, death also brings you to God because your heart rate goes flat, right? So these are the cycles we take. We can be at extremely high vibrations to achieve that all or God state, but we can also be dead, and that'll be our God state, and that's the renewal. These are the cycles that we take. But as someone who started a podcast and edits the podcast, what I get to witness is the actual shapes that take form in the vibrations of our voices. And I think it's profound. I keep seeing the Mandelbrot set in all of it. So really one thing I want to do that I haven't done, that I need to find someone who knows how to do this, is take the shape of the Mandelbrot set, put it horizontal instead of vertical, and then listen to what that sound would be, because I keep seeing it everywhere. That being said, that's a tangent. The cool thing about looking at our recordings, like physically looking at the vibrations of the words that we're saying, is, and we're doing it as we're, and it just went away as I was looking at it. The cool thing about looking at that is the highest points of our vibration is when we're laughing. And a lot of the mystics will say, like, the highest thing that one can experience is that laughter. It's that child, it's that joy, it's that bliss. And so it's so beautiful to go through and just actually witness that.